You guys, how fun is this? We're just like a little girl gang here hanging out in a beach house in Newport Beach, California. I'm pumped to be here with two powerhouse humans, Kristina Barthold, Tara Hannaford,
hello,
and yours truly. And we get to have some amazing conversations here and now in real life all together.
Three powerhouse women.
Three powerhouse women. Yeah, I guess I should not leave myself out.
Yeah.
Leave no man behind.
No.
And this is so amazing. We have had such a full day of podcasting. Kristina and I love doing this when we travel and get to put amazing people in the chairs and the couches. And we are rounding out a great day with a true gem.
Oh,
Tara Hannaford.
Hi.
Welcome to not one, but two podcast shows.
Yay, Tara.
No, this is incredible. And you guys are absolute rock stars. What a day. And I would not be able to tell that you've been shooting all day because your energy level is still a 10.
I did take
kudos.
one 15-minute nap that brought me back. Like I experienced it. I came back. Allie's been going all day.
Here for it.
Yeah.
Here for it.
Are you nap, like in general, this is a great question. Are you a napper? Like,
No.
Can you nap other time? Like,
I'm in a season right now where napping has been a frequent of mine, but I would say in a general lifetime, no. I'm like a get her done kind of person. You know? Are you a
go
napper?
to the end, ride till it's done. No, I'm not. So when I do take a nap, I'm like, wow, I really needed that.
Yeah.
But there was this fun little fact we came upon a few years ago, which was called a study by NASA. And so there's what they call the NASA nap.
Oh.
And the NASA found out what the optimal time is when you nap. And it's 26 minutes. So 26 minutes is long enough to feel rested, short enough to not like dive into any significant REM or something where you're going to have a residual, kind of fatigue. And so when I do think about napping, I'm like, did you get a NASA nap? Was it 26 minutes? Sounds like you might have been 9 minutes short.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I was robbed. Okay, well, that's interesting because sometimes I find when I nap, this is obviously off topic, but like when I nap, I'm like worse off. Like I wake up and it's like I've been like
Kinda out of
beat
it.
up, like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh God. So
Yeah.
it's tough.
Yeah.
So do you
I've always heard about 20 minutes. So note to self, NASA nap,
Yeah.
26 minutes
26 minutes.
for
Yeah.
when I need a nap.
I'm not a napper, but there have been times where I've taken one. I really felt like I needed it. I want to say last week or the week before, and I actually felt refreshed. And it was one of the few times.
But did you time it? Like, did you put a 26-minute timer on? Oh, of course you did.
I would do the same.
I was like, well, because I don't know what's going to happen. What if I don't wake up?
Ever?
I don't know. Just like, what if it's 2 hours later? I felt pretty tired, so I had to time.
Like, what if I fall asleep and I just die? Gotta set the timer.
Hello, I'm not ready for that yet.
Yeah. I have a lot of life to live. I feel you. Yeah.
But I actually think that can come from stress sometimes, where if you have had experiences where you have slept through something that was really important,
Yeah.
it's like a lingering trauma.
Yeah.
I have done that. And sometimes I will shoot out of bed.
What did you sleep through?
Oh, this was also off topic, but it was a work trip to England it was a brand trip with McLaren.
Oh, wow.
And McLaren owners. This has been my previous job when I worked for a luxury automotive group. And we had traveled. So it was like a 27-hour journey of taking like your red-eye flight,
Yep.
being up overnight, landing, at 6 a.m. in London, having a full day, drinks with everyone in the lobby lounge, dinner. We must go for drinks after dinner. And then you go to sleep at whatever late time it was, only to wake up we were supposed to in the morning for a scheduled tour to the McLaren racetrack.
Nice.
And I was the leader of the group, and I slept through my alarm because I didn't have the appropriate charger for the UK outlet. So my phone died, and I was so tired that I slept through the ringing of the phone.
Oh my gosh.
And then I had my colleague bang on my door, and that's what woke me up. Panicked. Guys, this was years ago.
Yeah.
And it is still a trauma. So I have never, ever done anything since.
Wow.
I've never slept since.
I would, yeah. That's
It was a trauma.
That's big. That's big.
Life altering moment. Okay, so just skirting back to entrepreneurship and big things that we're building and we're excited about. Now that everyone will leave this with like a NASA nap, set an alarm when doing important things and travel.
It's all important.
We need to dive into the good stuff because I've basically had a girl crush on Tara since she came into my orbit. So this is really exciting for me. And Christine, I hope you share this like, same energetic exciting because I feel like I am like being so.
Well, actually, it was
I
so funny
understand.
because Tara's like new to my world in the last few weeks of someone I'm hearing about. And I was like, Allie, like if you want to do this podcast like by yourself because it seems like you really want to nurture this relationship. And Allie's like, no, you can be there.
Sharing is caring.
Yeah.
Sharing is caring.
That's how I knew she loved me. Yeah.
So we need to tell everyone who Tara Hannaford is and what your experience has been entrepreneurial wise.
So, spotlight. I have been, I've spent the last 2 decades in building brands in consumer product, specifically in beverage alcohol. And it has been a non-traditional upbringing, I'd say, professionally into the space. There wasn't kind of this, hey, here's what I'm going to do. This is what I really want to do. And I fell into it. In fact, quite the opposite. I was on track. I had been accepted into a law program in Washington, D.C. I had an internship with the Department of Defense. And I'm riding my bicycle in Los Angeles. I'm living in Los Angeles at the time where I moved when I was really young. I moved to LA right before I turned 20. I was like 19. I remember the dinner. I turned 20 in LA. And I just felt like I had not scratched the surface on what I knew was this magnanimous, unbelievable city. Just a city absolutely overflowing with opportunity. And something just said, like, don't go yet, defer. And that was a really big deal because I didn't have any financial support. I wasn't on any financial support from my family. And so at the time, I think I was doing like catering jobs with a few different catering companies and kind of anything I could do. I was, doing different gigs or modeling, working for Fila when like a tennis thing would come through or something. All to say, I ended up getting recruited by some friends in the city. There was a brand in the vodka space, and it was family owned and operated out of Maui. They were looking to scale, and a buddy of mine, I grew up in the hospitality business. And so I just naturally had friends in that space. And it's kind of how you naturally fall back into it in LA. It's like a very homey, industry. And they said, Tara, this brand's looking for someone. You would be great at this. And I can't remember if I was even really excited about it at the time. I just was excited to get paid to work, and I needed a job very badly, like one job, a big girl job. So sure enough, I ended up taking the opportunity, and that is what turned everything upside down. There are some nuances in that were hilarious looking back at it. Like, this brand was really trying to make its mark in the most competitive market. I had limited budget and tools to do it, and yet we really succeeded. Like, I had to kind of I had to earn my job every month, to keep that going. And it ended up being a really positive experience. And I learned that I loved both the creativity and challenge that comes with being an entrepreneur. Because when you're working in the startup space, even if you're not the founder, but you're an instrumental role working beside a founder to build something that no one knows about, right? You're creating awareness. You're trying to figure out how to convert. You're in it. And so that was just something I recognized really lit just my spirit, and creatively, value-wise. So made some really great relationships. And then that brand, by the way, could no longer afford me. They were trying to grow. It was this really sad thing. I'm like, wait a second, I need this job. But I made enough relationships where next thing you know, I was being recruited by a lot of major companies. And that was the nice thing about getting started in LA, because those are really hard positions to come by. Everybody wants to work for a company or a brand in the major cities. So as I like to say, I could kind of write my check after a while, because I was showing up. I was actually doing the work, which was really freaking hard. You're pounding the pavement. It was pounding the pavement. But from there, I ended up going on to a brand out of San Clemente, just south of us, about 20 miles. And it was a tequila brand called Peligroso. And the founders were 3 guys, all really successful in other industries, which is what will be a theme in all of this. Because most of the time, new companies, new brands, I mean, oftentimes are founded by people that have experience, right, building something. They've probably had some sort of financial windfall, right? They've had an exit, they've done well. So now they're going to fund whatever this, we'll call it most likely a passion project or something they see an opportunity zone in. And that's what these guys were doing. So there was commercial real estate, there was action sports and products, and we were off to the races. And so I started literally then my career just working alongside founder CEOs, building brand, pre-product or very early stage product, and everything that comes with it, like carrying the burden of keeping the company running, hiring the right people, feeling the weight of whether something's capitalized correctly, how to deploy that capital, how to make it last. So I was just thrown to the fire from day one with brand building. And I realized not only do I love where do you find the white space and how do you actually build a tangible brand and an audience for a brand, but I've learned I am an operator. I love actually like knowing what makes the business tick and how to make sure that it's funded to succeed, how you need to set up your options to keep it going and growing based on what your exit goal is, or your long-term kind of stay and scale. But yeah, so super 35,000 feet, but I, then very quickly ended up going to a few other brands, which then brought me to, which most people know is Casamigos. Two brands that I worked on were acquired by Diageo, which is the largest global importer of spirits. And it was, after the second one that I got a call from one of the founders of Casamigos. Can you guys come up for a interview in Malibu? And I ended up being there for 6 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
What did you talk about in that interview? Because that feels like that is beyond just strategy.
Funny enough, I went to that interview thinking, I should say I went to that interview not really excited or inspired. I was a bit of a snob at that time with product. And I remember being a little, let's say, defensive or protective, thinking that some celebrities just wanted to get into the space because I, specific to agave and tequila, love the spirit. It's generations and generations of family and farming. And I kind of felt like, are these guys tarnishing this? Are they just trying to kind of put their brand on this? And we were still educating people about tequila. A lot of people didn't know about tequila. So I was pleasantly surprised. I go up there and they ended up being the real deal. Like they love tequila, love it. Like as if George Clooney was sitting here right now, we would be halfway through a bottle. And not because he, of a reason other than he just so enjoys it and it's fun and it's conversational. But they were the real deal. How they came to the brand, why they started it, wanting to build it was a total accident. It was not their plan to build a company. So when I learned that, we just hit it off. And kind of everything was like, I was getting drilled. Randy's like, how do you drink it? I was like, I drink Reposado on the rocks. And he was like, you're hired. I was like, great.
I love that. I mean, we actually often ask when we hire trainers for the gym, we ask if they love dogs and if they like Negronis. Those are some qualifying questions.
Yes.
So I love that. Naturally, it would be an appropriate question. I think Kristina brought the tequila today, so we can bring that up later.
Yes. Yeah. We can do body shots after this.
Oh my gosh.
Off film.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Who doesn't do that?
So 6-hour interview. That's amazing.
Yeah. It ended up being conversational. They ended up having a couple other people come in to interview and they were like, don't leave. So I was just staying, like hanging out, watching them interview people. I'm like, this is hilarious. What are we doing here?
Like, how many tequilas did you guys all have?
No one was drinking that day yet. It wasn't until later, but yeah. And then it kind of was, there was a few partners involved and, there was this idea of like, hey, can we get something done tonight? And I was like, let me go home and we can all round up tomorrow. And we did. And it was a great experience. It was really fantastic building something that typically up to that point you would look at, and I think a lot of this also had to do with how our society has been so connected and you can learn so quickly about things through social media. Because when I started building brands, we didn't have social media.
Yeah.
You know, it's cut the time in half for, I'd say, getting to critical mass or getting to a place where your business is viable for acquisition. It used to take, you could almost roll a thumb, say, we have 10 years to build this thing. Imagine like saying that about anything. And that's why I don't think that this is, you know, this is industry agnostic. Like if you'd be like 10 years, yeah, that's crazy long.
A
right?
decade.
Yeah.
It does sound long.
Yeah. So by the time we started doing stuff with Casamigos, that had been shortened a little bit. But we initially, I mean, it was a 3-year run. They had been at it a lot longer, but when we actually launched the import company, it went really quick.
Would you rely, you know, previously, prior to social media, would you rely more on traditional media, like traditional PR?
Yes. Yeah. You know, it really, I think my hesitancy is with the word rely. We didn't really rely on it. We utilized it as an additional way to create awareness, because you're not able to tell if you're converting and what kind of like direct ROI you're creating with PR. And now that's even changed. That's a whole other topic now. Today it's different, but even back then you couldn't really tell what you were getting for PR and how that was coming back full circle. But you knew you needed it for awareness. It was all tactical, guerrilla sales and marketing, feet in the street, liquid to lips, and telling the story, and using your skills and the art of persuasion to get people to, you know, convert and have a connection to your brand. Something that, by the way, I still use today that still works, which is if I create a moment with a consumer or with a target customer, if I can somehow create a moment that I know they probably haven't had with the category leading brand, they are likely to stick with mine if they had a favorable experience. So, you know, an example of this specific to beverage alcohol is, let's say when we were launching tequilas, people were only drinking Patron. And half the time they didn't even know that was tequila, which is a whole other story because education is so important when you're out building brand. But that was the brand and everybody was loyal to it, as they should have been. I knew that if I went up to someone and said, hey, what are you drinking? Oh, we're going to buy you this. 9.5 times out of 10, I can promise you no one from Patron had bought them a drink before. So now they've had, you know, this nice surprise. We've probably had a conversation. We've had some laughs. And now they're like off to the races. Just let that go. And they'll turn it on to 5 more people. Like that's how it rolls. So I am still very much a big believer in building brands tactically.
Like experiential.
Yeah. I really look at the digital space as a place to reinforce what we're doing in the, you know, meat of the brand, like what we're doing out in the world in real life. If we are being authentic, ideally our digital spaces are simply reinforcing what we've created. And that messaging is consistent, right? And it's more of a way to remind them or keep them engaged in the space, not something that I anticipate creating a customer for us.
Just to touch on that very quickly, like I own a marketing agency. That's what I do. And so it's just interesting because I think even with ads, people always say like, oh, I want ads. And I always tell clients, I'm like ads don't sell, they tell. And really,
that's a great saying.
Just thinking about when you see an ad, like it's actually like, that's not going to sell you. It's the reminder. People need to see things like upwards of 30 times before they're buying it. So, but I think the lifespan on that is so much shorter when you meet someone at a grocery store. Oh, and I even say this with my brick and mortar clients. I'm like, get people in your space. Get people walking around. Invite we work with a luxury rug designer. I'm like, get every interior designer you know in here for lunch. And they're never going to buy a rug from anyone else, right? Like it's that like that community feeling of like making them feel like they're part of something bigger.
Yeah. Can you create an experience with the right, partners and cross-pollinate, right? In a way that's going to create more awareness.
Yeah.
That's always also been really frustrating, working either directly on brand or if times I've come in on a contracting basis, right? More in a consulting capacity, is making sure that no matter what you're doing, right? If it's your own if it's your personal brand, if it's a product brand, is being able to forecast out. And this is where the marriage of brand and commercial, right? Commercial thinking, being able to commercialize something has to happen. Is you have to go, okay, how long can I do this for? And I need to make sure that I let the cycle go long enough to work. So often people will go, oh, we're going to run this campaign and we're going to run it for 30 days. We're going to run it for 60 days. And I'm like, why don't you just light a trash can of cash on fire?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like you need to actually let something run. By the way, like I'm saying a minimum of 6 months.
Yeah.
And even then you might just start getting the conversion. I'm probably going to need to say run it for 9.
Yeah.
I don't know if you would agree with that.
100%. Yeah. And I think it's because people are so used to instant results with things.
They want to pivot.
Exactly. And like, so I find it's even with like with prospective clients are like, what results will I see in 3 months? I'm like, well, there will be results. You will see results. Yep. You're going to see better brand awareness. You're going to see more engagement. You're going to see these things. But it's going to take time for people, especially higher end goods.
Yeah.
Like things that are $8, less thought. But you're not going to sell 30 luxury rugs from an Instagram post right away.
Yeah, and also managing the expectation. And I think this is just as important from the business perspective as it is like for myself when I'm managing my own success, right? My business is what am I really trying to measure, right? When you using the word result, like that can mean so many things, right? So if we just even try to tear that apart, is you are getting results in 3 months. It's awareness, but you might not be getting the real result that you want, which is a flywheel. That might happen at month 9 and 10. Most likely that is when that's going to happen. So, you've got to be able to look at your business model and say, what can I do with my resources, right? Whatever budget you have, we all have finite resources. I don't care if you've got 2 million or 20 million for a project. How am I going to use that against my plan and against really specific goals? What are my goals? And then everything should back into that. I think so often people pivot, they want to move too fast, too wide, too broad, too fast. Yeah. I am super old school with that and I don't care. It still works.
We see that a lot even in the fitness industry.
Yeah.
At the gym, with personal training clients, I think 8, 12 personal training sessions, this is what you should look like. This is what your results should be.
Yeah.
And I've really leaned into even the conversations, how when it comes to results, even something that you can measure that's like your rest time. If you started training with me, Tara, and between your exercises, you needed 3 minutes to recover because your heart rate was high, you felt like lightheaded, winded, whatever it may be, that you want to have adequate rest time, that is important. But that is actually something I will point out to some of my clients that, Tara, you used to need 3 minutes and we're at 30 seconds now. And now you can get after the next exercise. That you might not have 12 abs, but look at this way of measuring the success and the hard work that you're putting in.
Your actual fitness has grown, right? Your cardio. And again, that's such a great call out because what is success? And sometimes, by the way, there's multiple ways to measure it. We oftentimes just need to expand our own thinking around what that is, and celebrate those little victories because that's what gets us to the 6-pack if we ever get there.
Yeah.
Right.
Like me and my pull-up
We've got to start somewhere. Yeah. You've got to hang from the bar before you can even think about doing
this is a
the
dead
pull-up.
hang.
Yeah.
This is where I'm currently comfortable. Now I just need to get up there.
Yeah.
Over the top.
Yeah.
But I think I love what you said about going wide and what your approach is to success, how you're measuring, what are the results. And I think a lot of people also probably naturally think revenue. They think like their money. But also you can break that down into different categories as well in terms of net, gross.
Oh, yeah.
Investments you make in a year, what that looks like.
Yeah, I think there is great reward in discipline. And my favorite word to say as an entrepreneur is no. It is so easy to want to tackle all of the opportunity, which, by the way, is incredible. When you're doing something and people want to help, or people want to open an avenue, or they want to give something a shot, again, you have to go back to your brand blueprint of like, what am I trying to achieve here, right? What's my goal at 35,000 feet, and what's my goal that I need to hit in 30 days? And if I say yes to this, is that getting me closer to it? If I say no to it, always checking what I'm doing. I think right now, because we are so interconnected, that it's really tempting and easy to want to expand, business geographically. I'm like, win in your backyard, win in your sphere of influence, win in what I call like micro communities. Figure out what's working, what's not working, right? Then continue to replicate that. Now you have something, now you can actually scale successfully, right? Because now you know what works. So you can take that into other markets and maybe just adjust by a quarter turn, but you're like becoming incredibly efficient. And that's the other thing. It's not about quantity, it's about efficiency. Nothing makes me happier than looking at a business that is so freaking efficient. I'm like, you win at life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're winning. And doesn't mean because you might be doing 100 million in sales or whatever it is. It's like, no, you've got this thing right. Now you know that if you put more capital into something, or you put more time into something, that it'll grow. So yeah, I know we've kind of jumped all over, but definitely part of my wheelhouse of what I love doing is looking and saying, what's the goal for this thing? And what do we need to do? What kind of plan needs to be created that you can scale?
I love what you dropped about a brand blueprint.
Yeah.
Is that something that you could elaborate on? Because I feel like that's a really powerful takeaway for people listening. Both Kristina and I, our audiences are very like entrepreneurship heavy, whether it is a brand that is like a brick and mortar product or service, but even personal brands. I think understanding what makes a strong brand blueprint would be fantastic for people to know.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I always look at, and especially when I sit down with a founder, is get incredibly clear about why are you doing this, and what would you like to see be the result? Like, what are you trying to achieve? Give me your wildest, most grand, like potential that you could have happen through this. And then what also would just make you really happy I think I can make this happen in the next 12 months, right? 12 to 24 months. The blueprint is understanding that why, and then figuring out, then you have to go to the table and do the work. This is the unfun, unsexy part. Everybody just wants to jump into the idea. They just want to jump into like, let's put it online. Let's do this thing. And by the way, action is so important. One of the things I've learned, I've worked for unbelievable entrepreneurs. I've worked for billionaires. I've worked for people that have been incredibly successful in so many sectors. The common denominator, again, of all of these people is massive action. Massive action. They deploy it all the time. And by the way, they're also the people that if I texted right now, they're running a gazillion companies, they will text right back.
Yeah.
They are just on it. This whole like, I don't know, I don't have time. It's like, they're just on it. These people are maniacs. But what I was saying is like, know your why. Now you have to do the work and go, okay, what do I need to do that? And start getting a little protective over it. Like, what do I need to do this? What do I need to do this from my time? Do I need to give something up? Do I need to carve something in? Do I need to capitalize this? How do I need to capitalize it? I cannot tell you the amount of people I meet with and they're like, I'm ready to give away equity. I'm ready to this. I'm like, oh my gosh, don't ever say that again.
Yeah, stop.
Just stop.
Stop, drop, and roll.
Yeah, stop, drop, and roll. Or, I want to give away something. I want to get this celebrity in. I'm like, okay, let's get back to that. So how do you do it? How could you conceivably, go after the goal of your business or your brand from a financial standpoint, right? And then backing into like, how do you see this performing, right? And if you maybe don't know the answers to that or don't have experience with that, then like start reaching out to people that have done it before and can give you some rules of thumb. But again, I think like the brand blueprint is my why. Okay, what do I need? What do I need that I can deliver? What do I need that I need help with? What do I need that I need to outsource? Again, this is the really unfun stuff because you're likely going to come to answers you don't like. Mm-hmm. And that's where like the mounting of doubt will come in too. It's all of a sudden the mountain feels really big. Like I just started working on this crazy project out of the blue. And I had one of those days where I was like, oh, this is a lot. Like, can I do this? I don't know if I can do this. These are the moments where that comes in.
How do you kick yourself back into the game in that moment of doubt?
So I'll go back to do I really want to do this, right? That's why it's like, what's the clarity on the goal? How does that excite me? Literally, how does that excite me in the depth of my like belly? Mm-hmm. Is there a fire there truly for it? Because that is what does bring you back. And I realized, no, this is a great idea. So just keep going. Yeah. But yeah, you have to know your why. You have to know what you're up against, what you need to do it. What can you bring to the table? What can you stretch for? What do you need help with? And then you've got to put pad to paper. Mm-hmm. Like it's so funny. I'm not a numbers person. And my husband would sit here right now and be like, yeah, you are. And I was like, no, I was forced into becoming a numbers person because I was like, if I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I want to be leading business, I have to model this out. Mm. I can't just have this idea. Like I need to actually model it out. Now, whether it's pretty or not is a whole other story. They've gotten prettier over the years, but yeah, then you got to model it out. Like, what does this look like? What do my numbers look like? Can this be sustainable, right? If you're going to put this much time and effort, heart and soul into something, it's worthy to do the work of testing your thesis, right? And I think sometimes in full circle, why maybe it's so sexy to go so big and so fast because you get to move away from what if this doesn't actually make sense.
Because it's got to have there has to be some fear that comes up in that stage.
Yeah.
Where, you could easily talk yourself out of it to, your point.
Thanks so much for listening to Community with me, Kristina Bartold, and I'm just so excited to continue the conversations. If you're looking to grow your community and learn more about social, join us at thesocialbusinessclub.ca and use the code podcast to get your first month for $1. Share this episode with your friends and on social, or leave a review. It means the world.